A GTA 5 exploit allowed users to trigger deaths in other players' single-player games. The next Fractured Space update will be the last, and some new DMCA exemptions help video game preservationists in their quests. That, plus a look at the game radar, the latest patches, and what I've recently played coming up on your dot plan for October 28th, 2018. So first up, we're taking a look at the PS3 game Warhawk. It was announced that the servers for this game, which is a multiplayer game, will be shut down and have been shut down this past week. It was a third-person military shooter that came out on the PS3 back in 2007. That's probably why. That's why this is sort of noteworthy, is that it was servers were up for quite some time, even longer than probably most games. But it is still like a multiplayer only game, so once these servers have gone down, that's it. You can't play it anymore. And it was developed by Incognito Entertainment for PlayStation 3. It's aerial warfare, ground warfare, a little bit of all those stuff, as you can see in the trailer from IGN here. It was initially intended to have a both single player and multiplayer, but they decided that didn't have enough time to do the single player stuff, so Warhawk itself was only a multiplayer game. There was a follow-up to it, according to the Wikipedia here, that was called Starhawk, and which sounds something like it would be more into my realm of things, that actually had a single player campaign in addition to the multiplayer. So I would imagine, I don't know if the multiplayer still works in Starhawk or not, but at least you had a single player in that, so you didn't really lose the ability to play the game at all. But this does bring up the whole idea that losing access to these games that you've paid for, even though they are many years old, is a bit of a bummer. And we'll be talking about video game preservation stuff a little bit later, but it's noteworthy because of that. Because if you are still playing this game, or there was, from what I could glean, there was still a small community that was playing with the game, but they it wasn't large enough to keep the lights on, as it were, for it. So unfortunately, if you were owner of that game, it's now a coaster. That's about all you can use it for at the moment. Next up is GTA 5. There was, and it's been since patched, but there was an exploit that allowed hackers to kill players in their single-player games without even being online, using just their Rockstar social ID. If the hackers employing this new your social ID, your Rockstar social ID, they could just trigger what were basically admin commands that Rockstar used to kick players online and do various other things while they were streaming and whatnot. A lot of it is, killing players. You could spawn vehicles, so on and so forth. And this was even not just the multiplayer, but also in the single player game. There was a video out there of a speedrunner who was doing a speedrun of GTA 5. They're about an hour into it looked like, and of the story mode, and some hacker just went and up and killed them right in the middle of their speedrun. So that you can see how annoying that was. That said, it sounded like the tools, these admin tools, have been in the game since it launched. They were originally tools that were just used internally for various means to kick players and stuff that were being rowdy, and they have just been this exploit has just been patched very recently. So there you go. You're able to now go back and play GTA 5 at least offline, to get away from the hackers. Online, good luck. I've heard it's quite the playground for exploits. But at least your offline games can be exploit free for a little while now, until someone else finds another thing. But that's our peek into the seamy world of mods and things, of mods, of admin tools, and why you should not probably not ship them with your main game. Onwards, though, friends, to Fractured Space. Fractured Space here. The devs of Fractured Space have announced that the next update will be the last update for Fractured Space. The servers are going to continue, as far as I know, continue to be up and running, and you'll still be able to play the game and whatnot, but it's not going to get any further content updates. The game just never really took off. It never found its legs. It's a game that I unfortunately, I'm showing you the trailer here, but mostly because I didn't feel like jumping into a game to record. But I've played a little bit of it while it was still very early, and it's a MOBA in space, essentially. There's lanes, you jump around, you have to protect things. There's all the normal stuff that you would expect from like a League of Legends kind of thing, including very, very long matches, which is why I didn't want to jump in and try to record footage, because I remember the matches were going on for like 45 minutes or more. I don't know if that changed in the interim time, years since I've played it, but it was quite the long form, long in the tooth sort of thing. And like I said, it never really found its audience, as far as I can tell. There is a community obviously around it, those who have found it and enjoyed it. It's my understanding too, a lot of that community is a bit toxic. It's about as toxic as a League of Legends thing. So that was the other thing that I know, that when I jumped in when it was still early, alpha and beta, and I jumped into a match and was playing around, and even then, when there was very few people who had access to the game, the chat was unruly. It was, how could you not know how to play this game? It's like, well, it's alpha. Of course I don't know how to play the game. Of course I don't. But that's it's neither here nor there. They've said, as part of the update, the Infection is their latest update, and after it, as part of the update, all the platinum, which is the in-game currency, will be stripped from the game. Any platinum you currently have stored in your account will be converted into credits at a rate of 550 credits per one platinum. The credits, you'll be able to purchase anything that you could purchase only with platinum, you can now purchase with credits, such as skins for your ship, bundles, and credit boosters. And then the Infection episode pack will be available to purchase for just 1 credit. Steam DLC will no longer be purchasable from within the game or from the Steam store. However, unredeemed keys will still be redeemable on Steam for the content advertised when the key was purchased. So you're not getting screwed per se. You're getting the in-game credits. There's all these games have multiple things. You have credits that you earn from playing, and then the platinum that you only can earn from paying. Now it just sounds like it's all getting converted over into pay stuff, and you shouldn't hopefully miss out on anything. So here's hoping they continue forward and maybe find their footing after this. Who knows? Who knows what lies in store for them? This comes on the heels of a lot of stuff going on with Dreadnought as well, which is another multiplayer, not a MOBA, but it's a multiplayer shooter game in space with big hunkin' dreadnoughts. And their launch also was just not very good. And they've laid off a bunch of their staff, and they also were in sort of a holding pattern now with their game. So not a good start for the multiplayer space game genre right now. So hopefully we'll get one that's a little bit more successful. There are games out there still that are still fairly successful. Star Conflict is one that comes to mind as one that's been out there for quite a while. Even like the Battlestar Galactica Online game is like still has a bit of a following and stuff. I've played around with that a little bit. It's not that good, but it's but it certainly has a community around it. So if you're looking for your sci-fi fix, you can still probably get into these games. I know Dreadnought's still available, and obviously Fractured Space is still available. It's just a matter of they've both, I think, tried to go free to play, and both have not found their footing. So just know before you go in that you're going into you're going into something that is going to only have the most hardcore of community left, because a lot of people will probably jump ship once there's no longer any updates. Who knows? Who knows how that's gonna flesh out for them? But anyway, moving on to perhaps some more positive news, I guess, and that comes to us from the video game preservation area of video gaming. As we've mentioned before, when the lead off with Warframe being, or Warframe, not Warframe, Warhawk, sorry, having shut down its servers. There has been a lobby going on to try and get some exemptions put in to our Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Now, the act, as it was created, I think every 3 years, as part of the law, the Library of Congress ? Gathers together and needs to listen to testimony and whatnot to find out what parts of the DMCA should be renewed and what parts what exemptions should be made, because at least they knew when lawmakers knew when they made the DMCA that the technology was going to continue changing, and then they needed to handle new and exciting things. So every 3 years, you can go through this process of trying to get exemptions put in, and it sounds like we've had some good progress when it comes to video games and preservation. The Register of Exemptions, Register of the Library, I guess, has accepted the following exemption. I'm going to read this one through because there's some interesting things here. Video games in the form of computer programs embodied in physical or downloaded formats that have been lawfully acquired as complete games when the copyright owner or its authorized representative has ceased to provide access to an external computer server necessary to facilitate an authentication process to enable gameplay solely for the purpose of A, permitting access to the video game to allow copying and modification of the computer program to restore access to the game for personal local gameplay on a personal computer or video game console, or B, permitting access to the video game to allow copying and modification of the computer program to restore access to the game on a personal computer or video game console when necessary to allow preservation of the game in a playable form by an eligible library, archives, or museum where such activities are carried out without any purpose of direct or indirect commercial advantage, and the video game is not distributed or made available outside the physical premises of the eligible library, archives, or museum. 2. Video games in the form of computer programs embodied in physical or downloaded formats that have been lawfully acquired as complete games. that do not require access to an external computer server for gameplay and that are no longer reasonably available in the commercial marketplace solely for the purpose of preservation of the game in a playable form by an eligible library, archives, or museum where such activities are carried out without any purpose of direct or indirect commercial advantage, and the video game is not distributed or made available outside the physical premises of the eligible library, archives, or museum. Computer programs used to operate... Sorry, I think I copied the page number there. Computer programs used to operate video game consoles solely to the extent necessary for an eligible library, archives, blah, blah, blah. Preservation activities described in paragraph B12.1b or B12.2 of this section. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of other things. There's some definitions of what complete games means. So complete games means video games that meet the definition of an earlier paragraph in this section, or that consist of both a copy of the game intended for a personal computer or video game console and a copy of the game's code that was stored or previously stored on an external computer server. Cease to provide access means the copyright owner or its authorized representative has either issued an affirmative statement indicating that external server support for the video game has ended and such support is in fact no longer available, or alternatively, server support has been discontinued for a period of at least 6 months, provided, however, that server support has not since been restored. Local gameplay means gameplay conducted on a personal computer or video game console or locally connected personal computers or consoles, and not through an online service or facility. A library, archives, or museum is considered eligible when the collections of the library, archives, or museum are open to the public and or are routinely made available to researchers who are not affiliated with the library, archives, or museum. So what this is basically saying is, for a very long time, there's been a movement to preserve old games, and so that for the purposes of, they are history, and being able to show this history in video game museums and whatnot. One of the big components of that, though, is what do you do with online games, like your World of Warcraft and multiplayer games that require a server for server browsing and all that stuff. And it's been a thorny issue because there is the server component of the game, and then there's the client component. And the client component is what you and I would download either from Blizzard or have on CD. And if you were to, say, pop in your old, say, City of Heroes disc, you wouldn't get very far. You would be able to get probably to the character creator, but then you wouldn't be able to actually jump into the game because the game would require a server to actually communicate with in order to display your starting area and all that stuff. What this is saying here is that if, say, NCSoft were to give their source code to City of Heroes to a museum, that museum could then run that server locally and have a copy of the client that runs against that server for the purposes of being able to play it locally and preserve that particular history. Now, a lot of the game journalism sites have kind of missed that part. They're all saying, "Oh, well, this is great because now we can, we might be able to pop in our old City of Heroes disc and be able to play it from our computers at home." And that's not what I'm reading here. And I'll admit I'm not very good with legalese, but it seems to me like this is it's the beginnings of something good, but it's a very, very narrow, narrow ruling, I guess, exemption, whereby you're not able to basically fire up a server and connect it to the internet and let anybody who has the client go and play on it. It's more like you have to house both the server and the client in a museum for local access, not for remote access. That's what I'm reading here. So it's a step in the right direction. It's not the step that we were all hoping for, where we could all just kind of fire up our old games and replay them. But it's a beginning to an end, and hopefully they'll, eventually be able to push for that. But like I said, it's just a weird. It's a lot of sites are not really reporting on that part. That they're kind of giving you misleading information that this is, you'll be able to go download the latest patch. You'll pop in, City of Heroes and be able to download all the latest patches that you didn't have from the CD that you popped in, and then play on a server and all that stuff. And that's not what I'm reading here. That's not at all what I'm reading here. And honestly, this requires a lot of extra effort where you have to get permission to have the source code. Who knows what version of the source code you'll be able to find to archive. The version of the server software, does that include the patching mechanisms? So for instance, if you didn't have, so say the server software you have is for version 3.0 and the client version you have is 1.0 because that was what was on the CD when you first bought it. Will these museums be able to then bring up the patching portion of the server and be able to patch their local clients up to the server's version so that you can actually play on the server? It doesn't really say. My thought is that it's probably going to be really difficult because they're going to have to find the right version of the client to go with the right version of the server. They might not find the latest versions of the server. They might only be able to find earlier versions, and then they have to find earlier versions of the client that match up with the server version. And then on top of all that, it's got to be the legitimate source code that's been given to them or donated to them from the copyright owner for the purposes of being a museum piece. And then some of these games that have been multiplayer games, like who knows if the source code even exists anymore for some of these older games. That was half the problem. A lot of the there was some information about what was it, the original BioShock, I believe was the game. And when the devs went to go and do a remake of it, a remaster of the original BioShock, they found out that they didn't have any source code. They had to go digging pretty far to find the source code of the original game, and what they found was not actually the final source code. They found like an earlier version, like a test version of it, and they had to kind of fill in all the blanks from that. That's the whole point of the whole video game preservation, is to be able to preserve all that stuff, because it is a part of our history that we're losing every day when all these servers go offline and whatnot. This is again very good thing. It's not the be all and do all yet, so we just got to kind of cross our fingers and hope for some more progress in that realm. What does that mean for museums that are like purely internet based? I don't think they can take advantage of it. I mean, it says it's got to be on the premises of the museum. Like, what do you do with say the Internet Archive, which doesn't have any physical premises? It's only, as far as I know, it's only a internet-based thing. Well, I'm guessing they won't be able to do this. I'm thinking that premises means physical location and not, a digital location. So I who knows? Like I said, it would take a lawyer to interpret this, and I am not one of those. But from what I'm reading, if what I'm reading is here, then this is not the smoking gun yet. So just biding our time until the next time we can get some more DMCA exemptions, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to actually relive our good old childhoods there and be able to actually, go back to some of these old communities, your Ultimas and Ultima Online and EverQuest Online and all that stuff, and and be able to partake in those things legally without, a whole lot of hand wringing and gnashing of teeth from the copyright holders and whatnot.
What's the matter with this thing? What's all that churning and bubbling? You call that a radar screen?
No, sir. We call it Mr. Coffee. Care for some?
Yes! I always have coffee when I watch radar. You know that.
Of course I do, sir.
Everybody knows that.
Of course we do, sir!
Now that I have my coffee, I'm ready to watch radar. Where is it?
Right here, sir.
All right, first up on the gaming radar is Ni no Kuni 2. Ni no Kuni 2 has, the devs have announced a new DLC called The Lair of the Lost Lord. It will be due towards the end of this year. And it kicks off when a mysterious gate appears inside the Rebelly ruins. It leads to a labyrinth. I don't know why the devs are so hard up on labyrinths. I guess they're just kind of, duct taping things into the game, and that's the easiest way they can do it, because I'm tired of freaking labyrinths. Give me a new map or something, for crying out loud. Anyway, plans to use this portal to things get whimsical when we learn of the Prince of the Wraiths, a mysterious rule of the labyrinth, who plans to use the portal to corrupt and destroy Evermore Kingdom, and so on and so forth. It will have about 80 new pieces of equipment, and there's a returning enemy that seeks a final rematch. So probably the main enemy of the main story is going to want a little rematch. And there is a new battle ability called the Martial Method, which is obtainable from the memories of people met during the journey. And that's all I know so far about this. I'll give you a link, as always, in the description to PC Gamer that kind of revealed this a little bit, and we'll have to see what is going on with that. I still haven't. It sounds like it's the first, dare I say it, proper DLC of the game. The last DLC that came out was it was okay. It was just kind of bolted on stuff, and I haven't even finished it myself because it's really difficult. Like the challenge that they put in there was just super difficult. A lot of challenging things. So I was just kind of I was grinding out quite a bit trying to get to a point where I could actually get through some of them, because they are quite difficult. But still. This sounds like it's going to be maybe good story content. The whole labyrinth thing kind of puts me off, honestly. I would rather see, maybe new areas to go to, or even just we'll go to old areas and have new quest dialogue and stuff. Who knows? It just seems to be what they're on about. So that's what they're on about, and that's what we're going to have to expect a little bit later of this year, friends. And next up is Hellgate London. Yeah, this game, the game that would never die, that has died several times and been resurrected. Hellgate, it is coming back again. Hellgate London actually debuted back in 2007, as you can see from this IGN trailer, which is all the blurriness that you can ever blurry. It was first of all, you had to pay for it, I think, MMO. Then it became free to play as an MMO. But it's never really taken off in the West. It's only really taken off in Korea and Asia. And it's really I believe it's an action RPG, action role-playing game, and battle skills, magic, all those things just never really took off here in the States, or even in Europe for that matter. Now they're coming back. I was looking at the Steam store page for it. It's listed as single player now. and not as an MMO. So it sounds like they've taken what was the MMO and made the single player out of it, just to have it back again. I don't know what kind of state it's going to be in, because obviously it was from 2007. Are they going to keep the engine the same? Have they rewritten it? Have they improved upon it? Are the graphics the same? I don't have any of those answers. All I can tell you is that I believe it is coming in November? Question mark. When I looked at this store page, I think it said like the middle of November or so. And it's going to have 6 classes of characters and character customization system, you know, all the kind of normal stuff there. It's going to include the content from Hellgate Tokyo, and that never saw the light of day. And yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say there. I've never really played it to tell you what's actually going on there. So, but it sounds like, I mean, since I'm the ARPG guy, it sounds like something that I would be interested in. So I've put it on my radar here and see what comes of it. But yeah, that's an interesting one. It's like MMO, then single player, or single player, then MMO, then single player again. Yeah, just have to give it a roll once it hits the air, shall we say. Next up on our list is, where's my thing at? Next up on our list is Stellaris. There is a new expansion coming out for $20 called Megacorp, and it will, I believe I actually have a thing here for it. Aha! And it will introduce corporate culture to Stellaris. So you get a city world with an ecumenopolis, which I've never heard of before, but it sounds like an economic metropolis, if I could think of that. It increases the population density of core worlds, caravaner fleets, which are nomadic wheelers and dealers, mega structures, galactic slave market, VIP statuses, bring more things, ascension perks and whatnot. I guess you can buy low, sell high as far as a few things go, and yeah, it's if you're into the mega structures, you've got like a matter decompressor, a mega art installation, strategic coordination center, and whatnot there. So if you're into Stellaris, you will probably be very interested in what is coming up for that as far as the DLC is concerned. There is no, as far as I know, date yet on when that DLC will drop, but it will be $20 from what I've seen on their website, and you can actually pre-order it now. So again, if you're a big fan of Stellaris, you can jump into that. I own it, obviously, because you're seeing footage here that I just recorded today, but I've never really jumped into it. I just, too many things, too many games, and not enough of me to go around. Not enough of my brain is available for it either. But it does look like it is something that I would enjoy if I could just put my mind to it. And putting my mind to an RTS right now is difficult. We'll say that much, because I have so many things I want to play. Let's get into the next one here, which is another one that I need to put some more time into, which is a Battletech, friends. Battletech has a new DLC, actually has announced 3 new DLCs, or DLC season coming. First off on the season is the high stakes short stories, which is, I believe Flashpoint is the first one, first DLC that's coming out. And it introduces this idea of flashpoints that embroil you in feuds and stuff like that of the great houses. And then all this comes on the heels of the season pass, as you'll see on your screen here, which brings with it Flashpoint. Urban Warfare will be the next expansion of Battletech, the next DLC, and then there's going to be a third expansion that they don't have any dates for yet. You can see, I think it's summer 2019 for the second expansion, and winter of this year, so between now and the end of the year for Flashpoint. He gives you extracurricular activities, criminal minds, so you got criminal syndicates going around that you can deal with, some headhunting, and new battle mechs, some new encounter, and a new biome to take on as part of your Battletech experience. I believe they say here, they don't have it on this graphic that I'm showing, but they have in their details that Flashpoint is going to come out on November 27th. And then Urban Warfare will be 2019, and then the third expansion they don't know yet. So you'll want to look for that on the 27th for the Battletech Flashpoint. And boy, do I need to get back into this game. I actually enjoyed the 2 to 3 hours I played of the game. I'm not really a big Battletech guy. I like mechs. There's a lot of complications around them. But again, it's another one of those, it's another strategy game that I just need to kind of sit down and just wrap my brain around and get it going. I'm not, by no means am I a particularly good player in any of these things, but they do intrigue me and I do like them. I just have to clamp down and make it something that I'm going to play with. So it just takes me a while to sort of warm up to things. Even with the Homeworld and all that stuff, like I've wanted to go back and replay Homeworld and everything, and I've just been putting it off because I know I'm going to go down the pit at some point, and I know I'm going to, really enjoy it, but I know I'm also going to end up getting into a spot where I'm like, I just don't know what to do next here, and I'm just going to be as bad as I can at the game because to get good at this would require me to spend numerous dozens of hours to figure out all the different permutations, and honestly I just want to play it for the story and play it and try to do at least a half decent job at it. So what I'm basically saying is strategy games intimidate me a lot because I know that I'm not optimal in them, and I know in order to be optimal in them, you really got to spend a crap ton of time in them. And there's so many, especially with a lot like Battletech and a lot of these games, there's so many little mechanics and stats and numbers to crunch that I end up kind of getting a little tired of it and just plunging right through and just taking a baseball bat to it instead of being very precise in my movements. So that's where we stand on the Battletech stuff. Last thing on our radar for this week is a game called Spellbreak. It is a battle royale game because that's the flavor of the half year, or actually full year, I guess at this point. What's interesting about this is it brings into the play magic stuff. So all your characters are spellcasters of various degrees, as you can see on your screen here. The art style reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild, the latest Zelda game. It's different, but it still kind of reminds me of that, which is kind of cool. That's really what drew my attention the most is seeing these nice, interesting art styles, and then also the spell casting and whatnot is really cool. There's you get basically your character has 2 enchanted gauntlets, and each one of those can have a different spell map to them. So you can and they all have primary and secondary fire as well. So for instance, you can have fire, ice, lightning, stone, wind, poison damage, and then you can like have one that does like fire, have one that does ice, and you can kind of combo the two together and for extra damage and whatnot. And spell effects are really, really flashy, as you can see on the screen. It looks really cool. And this is just alpha footage that they're showing here, and it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, we're probably at peak battle royale. Well, if we're not at peak battle royale, we by now, then I don't know what will what will cause peak battle royale. But I think we've been at it peak battle royale for maybe half a year at this point. And I mean, there's so many out there. Nothing can seem to upset Fortnite, although this seems like it might be a thing. And there's indications that Fortnite is starting to finally wear on people. It's lost a lot of its Twitch viewership recently. It's still top on Twitch and still top on Mixer and still top on, well, Caffeine as well. But it's not. It's starting to slow down a bit. It's starting to. I think people are starting to finally tire of it. So it's probably good time for this battle royale to come in and maybe possibly steal some of that thunder away a little bit. I mean, there's so many out there now. I mean, you still have I can't even name all of them. There's so many. I mean, you got Ring of Elysium, which is something I've actually played a little bit of, but didn't really get too far into. For your military battle royales, you still have PUBG out there. You still have Island of Nine, which is another military battle shooter one with the sci-fi twist on it. You've got actually Realm Royale, which we'll talk about in a moment, because they're just getting another patch as well. Even something like Paladins is not quite battle royale, but they're close. I mean, Realm Royale is really the Paladins battle royale mode essentially, and yeah, it's very packed. It's quite the packed crowd. So we'll see who wins out in this whole shootout, as it were. But that is our gaming radar for this week, or for the past week.
Radio call for you, Captain. Some guy named Graham and Ham.
Put it on the overhead.
Just a minute, sir. Go ahead, sir.
And we're starting off our updates this week with Realm Royale, as I said a little bit earlier. Early access 13, patch 13 has come out, and it's a pretty big one. It looks like it's got lots of weapons, stone staff, venom pistol. A lot of rebalancing has happened with the abilities. The chicken's speed has been reduced by 10%. Weapons, the stone staff and a venom pistol, as I said earlier, have changed a little bit. The potions are all been rebalanced, and all the forges are now active each game. So you can, I believe they had disabled some of them for, as they were going through the testing phases and whatnot. It's an interesting game. As you can see from the footage here, I played a little bit of it, and yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I kind of like the forge aspect of it. It brings something a little bit different to the battle royale genre, and I'm always kind of interested in something that's a little bit different than your normal thing. It hasn't really gathered an audience yet. The chicken thing is an interesting concept where you die, but you get when you get shot, when your health goes to 0, you actually get turned into a chicken, which can then, if you manage to evade your pursuers for a few minutes, you'll be respawned, or a few seconds, you'll be respawned as a full-on player again. So it kind of gives you a second chance, kind of, sort of. But the chickens have always been kind of very, in my opinion, very nerfed. And now it sounds like they're nerfing them even more. So it's a gimmick, but it's not necessarily a bad thing in that regard. It's just a weird it's a weird little outlier that I'm not quite sure where they're going with it yet entirely. But Ring of Elysium is another one that brings some new stuff to the genre, which is why I played a little bit of it too. There's still nothing that really, you still end up, like, of all the Battle Royales I've played, I will be honest and say Gene Shift Battle Royale has the most interesting concept to it. Unfortunately, nobody plays that game. I'm always playing against bots every time I jump into Gene Shift, but it's got the best one because it's like, yeah, we're just gonna have these really quick rounds, and you get turned into a zombie when you die, but if you kill another player, you instantly get respawned again, and it's got like only 20 people per match or so, and it just kind of boom, 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 runs through. You've got upgrades, character upgrades that you can pick up along the way and stuff. It just feels better. It doesn't feel like it's wasting your time. You're never at a point, like a lot of these games, all these games tend to have a point where you drop in and you spend 15, 20 minutes just sticking around until everybody has almost killed each other, until you're down to like the last 10, and then you actually start playing the game. Or if you're like me, you dick around until there's only 2 people left, and then you start playing the game. It's like, it doesn't, I don't know. I still have trouble finding the appeal in it, to be honest. But can't deny it. Lots and lots of people love these games, and so if you're a Realm Royale player, then you just got some new rebalancing has just come down the pike for you. So next up is Don't Starve Together on our updates. They have finally gotten their Halloween update going. It's called the Hallowed Nights, and it sounds like it's a yearly thing that they do. You get some new costumes. New for this year, you get mixed potions in the Mad Science Lab to get decorations that you can decorate totally normal trees. And there's also special disguises, new item skins, and whatnot. So another reason to, if you're a fan of Don't Starve Together, another reason to jump back into it. I don't know if it applies to Don't Starve, which is what you're seeing on your screen right now, which is the single player version. I imagine it would, but who knows? I literally just recorded this today and I didn't see anything interesting or different, but it's not necessarily, it might be just Don't Starve Together that does it, which is the multiplayer one. I don't know. I have no idea. It's a game that I actually I jumping back into the game, I'm like, I kind of did like this game. It was, when I played it, it wasn't even released yet, and it was still very early, and now jumping into it again, it's like, it's actually a little bit harder when you first start up. Getting through that first day and everything is a little bit of a challenge, but it's still pretty cool. There's a lot to this game that I just never really this game has that weird sort of creepy aesthetic that kind of rubs me the wrong way sometimes, and I guess that's why I never really played more than, say, a half an hour to an hour of it, because I can play it and I can tolerate it, but I can't tolerate it for long periods of time, and it's weird. It's just, I have this weird aesthetic thing where you get like this sort of creepy vibe aesthetic thing that I just don't enjoy the game as much. It's weird. I just got this weird quirk about me. But if you're, and I mean no disrespect to any Don't Starve fans, I think the game is actually really good. I think it's a pretty darn good game. It's just I can't play it for more than a few minutes at a time. But that said, there's that new Hallowed Nights have come down, so you might want to jump back into it as maybe your October game while we finish out the month here. Next on our list is a shortest trip to Earth, friends. Shortest trip to Earth has gotten its 0.42 update, and so it's still in early access, still doing its thing. But you got new drones. You got a DIY sentry tank, heavy sentinel, new crew hand weapons, new module. You've got updated merchants, updated ships, updated modules. Crew AI and commands have been updated. There's some new balancing that's happened, so more modules to shops. Shops have more modules available. Reduce some fire damage and speed. Reduce the medpay heal time. Rat intruder weapons are a little bit slower. Intruders now have a skull and crossbones next to them, so you can see them as compared to your own crew, which was one of the things that I had a problem with my initial video here. Was the game kind of suffers a little bit from CSS, can't see shit sometimes, and it's like someone helpfully out in the comments pointed out to me, like, I thought my robot guy had left the ship, but he was actually behind one of the turrets and I couldn't see him. So he hadn't actually left the ship as I thought. He just wasn't visible. So I think that's they'll have to play around with that a little bit to see how they can fix that up. But it sounds like all good things have happened here to improve the experience with Shortest Trip to Earth. And then next one on our list is Immortal Unchained. It has gotten a New Game Plus mode, and you can, or it will be getting a New Game Plus mode. I don't know if it's gotten it yet or not, but you get 4 extra possible playthroughs, with each one being more difficult. So it's like New Game Plus, New Game Plus Plus, New Game Plus Plus Plus. You get to carry over, your full character transfers over, so you keep your stats, your weapons, your armor upgrades, your items. The only thing that resets is the world state, so all the bosses are alive again, and the keys that you're carrying, so you have to get all the keys again as well. But then there's going to be, they're adding achievements for finishing each extra playthrough, and there's also going to be some new equipment and armor, as well as enemies that they're going to introduce, but they haven't announced that yet. And DLC is not, the update has not come out yet. It's still in progress, but it's interesting. It's nice to see some of these games getting new game pluses, and also getting, rewarding people for going back and doing it again. When you have sort of an RPG-like game like this, I think New Game Plus always seems to make sense to me, where you've got these stats that level up and whatnot. If you're wondering why I haven't played the game on a stream or anything yet, it's very Dark Souls, as you can see here, and I'm very difficult. I have a very hard time with games like this. This playthrough, the first playthrough I did of the game, which you never saw because I deleted the recording before ever putting it up, I was not doing well at all. I was just constantly getting killed. This playthrough, this couple of minutes of footage here, I actually did halfway decent, even though this is the first area. This character, I had a different character class before. This one seems to be more my speed. So I might jump into it at some point. I make no guarantees, because it's a hard sell for me. These Souls-like games are a very hard sell, because I'm not as much of a glutton for punishment as others are, and I get frustrated very easily. This one, what really attracted me about this one is that it has more of a focus on ranged weapons and guns and whatnot. You still have your melee weapons, and you still need to use your melee weapons because they don't give you a whole lot of ammo. But just the mere fact that I can have those ranged weapons, and I can shoot things from a distance and whatnot, was really a little bit more appealing to me. So we'll see what goes on with that. But that's Immortal Unchained, some new stuff coming down for that game. And speaking of very difficult games, we've got Helldivers also with an update. Helldivers is a top-down 2D shooter, and man, did I have so much trouble just recording this, because I was, as you can see the footage on your screen, I'm dead for most of the footage. I was, to be fair, I didn't feel like plugging my controller in, so I was playing with the keyboard and with just a keyboard and mouse, and wow, those controls suck a whole lot. You really need to play with a controller if you're going to play this game. But it is a full multiplayer game, so you drop in. Everybody's trying to beat back the enemy. There's all kinds of sectors you can go into, and there's various difficulty levels and whatnot. Think of it as it's almost Warframe, but 2D top down. It feels very similar. Like there's objectives on the map and stuff like that. It in many ways feels like a 2D Warframe, which is a very good thing. A very good thing indeed. That's another game that I need to spend more time in. I play it off and on here and there, but I haven't really. I need to spend more time in it, because it's very daunting, because there's so much going on there. This game has a lot less going on, but it's much more interesting what it has going for it. So that is there's a new update coming out, which gives you, I believe it's the Liberty update or something like that. So you get more planet difficulties. There's an exercise in futility where you learn the definition of insanity, preparing for inner circle of hell. So there's like level 13, 14, and 15 things going on now. You've got tougher enemies. You're also getting Obsidian Observer, which is, I believe, an enemy, a Legionnaire, Shadow, new stratagems. So you can get machine gun, an MX-42 machine gun. There's going to be Liberty Day competitions, so there's basically multiplayer events going on, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening right now. There's a free weekend just happened. I think the free weekend was actually going on just now as I was recording it, because there was like extra XP that I get at the end of this recording and stuff. So now would be a good time to jump in. There was a lot of people playing this game. Like I jumped in, and first of all, the world that I was in had been conquered long ago. The universe I had started in had been conquered long ago, so I had to go through all the you got XP for this and all that stuff. And I jumped into this, and there was only 2 sectors left that hadn't been conquered by players. So there's a lot of people playing right now. So this would be a good time to get into it for the first time if you're trying to figure out what this game is like and whatnot. But again, I use a controller, because you're going to hate life if you try to use the keyboard and mouse like I did. So that was Helldivers, and that was the end of our updates segment. So onwards and upwards we go.
He just kept talking in one long, incredibly unbroken sentence, moving from topic to topic so that no one had a chance to interrupt. It was really quite hypnotic.
All right, and we're back into the segment of our weekly updates here, where I get to talk about the games that I've played this week. And first up on that is called The Outer Rim Survivor. It's a very early alpha game. As you can see on your screen, it's a shooter. It's got it's a mouse-driven space fighter shooter. It's a little bit of freelancer in there, but not quite. The controls are still a little bit different. And right now it's in a form where you can get you can play these little skirmishes, but there's no campaign content yet. It looks like they're going to have some campaign, content eventually, but they're I believe going to have some sort of crowdfunding or something, or early access or something like that. So it was decent. It was a decent start. They have quite a ways to go there, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by what I saw, and it was certainly something to keep an eye on as we go along in the realms of sci-fi gaming and whatnot. The next thing on our list was Minion Masters. If I can get there we go. Minion Masters was basically this is a multiplayer, basically Clash Royale like game, and I enjoyed this quite a bit. Even though this is the problem with doing first impression videos, is that my first impression video, I lost every match, and as soon as I stopped recording, I won 6 matches. It's just I don't know why that happens to me, but it always happens to me where I'm like, I'm gonna record a first impressions, and I'm just absolutely suck at it, and then I stop the recording, and suddenly I'm actually not terrible. Not great. I still have a ways to really to go on it, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I enjoyed Clash Royale a lot. The only thing I didn't really enjoy about it is that it was mobile only, and though I had played it on emulators and stuff on the PC, it just became a pain in the butt. This one, I could see myself playing a bunch of and enjoying, just as like a casual thing, just do like a little casual stream here and there. It's got the same problems that like Realm Royale had with the whole Realm Royale. Why am I talking about Clash Royale? It's too many fucking Royale things. I swear to God, we got to get new words for things here. There's it works out decently. It's got the same problem that those games have, which is you end up facing off against people who have just bought every card in the game, right? It's like, oh, okay, I get it. I can't really get a decent match going because none of my cards are powered up enough and all that stuff. And it is what it is. I mean, once you get past that initial hurdle, it's not so bad. Like I said, after I stopped recording here, I got a bunch of wins. So it was just that I was getting a little bit frustrated where it was, these guys were just mowing right over me without any real problems whatsoever. And I'm like, well, how am my strategy can't be that bad. And then I found out off camera that I had played I think I was playing the AI, because there's these expeditions you can go on, which are really cool actually, where you don't necessarily, you play against other players sometimes, but then there's also monsters that you have to defeat that are actually AI that you're defeating to get the maximum rewards out of it. And I think one of those, I managed to keep control of the bridges for most of the game, and so my XP went up to the maximum. And when you get up to the maximum XP, it basically, you get unlimited mana. You can just start spamming cards left, right, and center. So I'm like, oh, now I'm understanding why I'm getting, like, towards the end of a match, I'm getting like 9,000 things getting thrown at me, because it doesn't cost them anything in mana anymore. So you just start spamming cards left, right, and center because they don't cost anything anymore, and then suddenly you basically overwhelm your opponent. So that's a way of keeping a match from going too long, which is cool. So now that I sort of understand that, I'm more focused on trying to maintain control of the bridges, keep them out of the XP and all that stuff, which is something I didn't really grasp when I was recording the footage. But now I'm a little bit more in tune, slightly more. So I may play some more of this on a stream. I'm very interested in in maybe doing that. I got so many things I got to play. It's hard to say yes or no to any one particular thing, but I definitely want to spend some more time in it as we're going. And the next one on our list is Star Singularity, 2D top-down space shooter. It was a lot of fun. It was interesting beginnings. Again, another game that has a long way to go, but I like that it had the sort of, I guess, a little bit slightly. It's not really RPG, but it's more like an inventory thing where your all of your what words am I trying to use here? All of your weapons and stuff have levels attached to them. Your armor, your weapons, your shields and whatnot, and you go through and craft. You can either craft newer ones or you buy upgrades and whatnot. And it's a cool concept, an interesting way of doing it, and I'm intrigued, and I wish to see more of it. So hopefully that they will continue forward and give us a ton of more updates and whatnot as they go along. So I'm hoping beyond hope that will be work out really well. I didn't really have necessarily any problems with it. The controls were decent. So hopefully we'll just keep on with that. The next one on our list is God is a Cube. God is a Cube is a puzzle game, a programming puzzle game. Now, anyone who's followed the channel for any length of time knows that I work as a programmer, not a game programmer, just a regular old programmer. And so programming puzzle games are very interesting to me. I like to see how devs try to teach lay people how to program. There's a lot of good ones out there, a lot of intriguing ways of doing it. The human resource machine is one. Anything from Zachtronics is really good. Exapunks is a new one, was released, which is a Zachtronics one. That's a really good one. Lots of stuff. And so I like to dig into them and play around with them and see how they work. And God is a Cube is decent. It's an interesting way of presenting things. What you're doing here is you're working on basically methods at a time, whereas a lot of other games you're working on an instruction at a time and you're looping those instructions and all that stuff. This one, you're working on an entire method and that method just loops. I did run into a problem later on where I couldn't progress any further, and I don't know if it's because I was not, I just couldn't figure out the right solution, or that the puzzle that I was on just didn't have a right solution yet. Maybe it was slightly broken. I don't know, because it's still early in the development of the game. So beyond that, everything else about it was pretty good. I enjoyed it, and I want to see what happens when they go out fully released with this eventually. So cool beans all around. Next on our list is Steel Empire, which was a 2D shmup, twin stick shooter. And what I found cool about this, it looked like it was maybe a port of an arcade game, and it sounds like there is some sort of universe, some kind of Steel Empire universe that this is part of, and maybe this was a port of an arcade machine or whatever. But what I found interesting and cool about it was that you could shoot backwards. So you could be in front of something, you can be behind something, and you still be able to shoot it and not have to sort of maneuver a lot. And they had two different ships that you could be in. You could be in a Zeppelin, or you could be in a fighter plane. They had different mechanics and different movement mechanics around it, and just in general, it was delightful. The audio there were some sound issues, but the music was okay. The gameplay was fun. you can't ask for much more than that, and I enjoyed the couple minutes that I spent with it. So it's certainly something that I would have finished playing had it not been just a first impressions thing. I would have probably gone through the whole game. So cool things all around, I'd say, on that one. The next thing on our list was The Colonists. Talking about strategy games and whatnot. Colonists is a node-based strategy game, and it actually feels more like a logistics game than a straight-up strategy game. Like, you have robots that are going around and trying to build a colony, but you build roads, and on the roads there's a node every like 4 tiles on the road, and your robots deliver things between those nodes, and those nodes can become congested if you don't have enough roads and all that stuff. And it's it makes for a very interesting way of doing things. It's not the first strategy game to do something like this, but it's certainly an interesting different way of doing the traditional strategy, city builder. So I enjoyed my time on that. I will almost definitely play more of it because I really did enjoy it. It does drag on a bit, is what I've noticed, is that it puts you into a bunch of scenarios. They are working, I believe, on a sandbox version of it, but right now you just play various scenarios, just basically playing different maps with different end goals. And it does take quite a while to do things. Like, it's an investment. It is a time investment. It's not like I'm gonna do one scenario every 45 minutes. It's more like it might take 2 to 3 hours to do a scenario, from what I can see. It's just, especially when you get a larger town going, and you've got a lot of moving pieces. You got a lot of like, I gotta put a storage thing over here because the robots are having to deliver things too far, and things are getting tied up, and our efficiency, our colony is not as efficient as it could be because there's other robots waiting for materials that aren't getting delivered, that are late on their deliveries, and all that stuff. So like I said, it's more of it feels more like a logistical game, which is really cool. I enjoy that, because there's a lot of like, your resources are late, so everything is kind of backed up. So it gives you lots of information about where things are backed up at, and what you need to do you can kind of figure it out on your own, what you need to do to make things go forward a little bit faster. So I would definitely recommend this through and through. I enjoyed the hour or so that I put into it, and I definitely want to go back for some more and play some more of it. So that was The Colonists. The next thing we took a look at was Claws of Fury. It's a beat 'em up. It's not a particularly memorable beat 'em up, and I wasn't really enjoying it that much. The character felt very floaty. Spent a lot of time just, I don't know, in loading menus and stuff. Like it's like just as you're getting into a level, the level ends, which I'm not sure what they were going for here, because like every time I felt like I was starting to get immersed in the game, the level was over, or I was getting a kind of a BS death out of it. You know what I mean? Like just landing on spikes or something like that. And it just, I don't know. I wanted to like it, and I wanted it to be, I wanted to give it a good heave-ho, a good try, but I just couldn't really get into it. Every time I'd want to get into it, the game would just throw a curveball that was just annoying as hell. Or, like I said, we'd be in a loading screen because we just moved on to the next level. And I don't know. I just, the attack is a little bit slow. Like there's a delay when you hit your button on your keyboard or on your controller to attack. The jump doesn't have a delay though, so some of the buttons are delayed, some aren't, and the boss battle was just kind of bonkers because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't defeat the boss, and it turned out that even though he was flashing from damage, he was flashing gold, which meant he wasn't actually taking damage. But if they flash red, then they are taking damage, which took me forever and a day to figure out. And once I figured it out, I was able to defeat the boss in the first area. I don't know. It just didn't sit with me. You know, there's certainly nothing here that is insurmountable as far as errors are concerned, or as far as ways of making the game better in my mind. But it's yeah, I don't know really what they were going for with it. Maybe it was maybe they originally wanted it to be a mobile game, and maybe that's why it kind of handles a little bit jankily. I can't put my finger on it. All I can say is that I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. The art style is great, the music's great, but the gameplay itself is, it's not great at all. So, Spidey Man, I played through the DLC that just came out. There was a Black Cat centered DLC. I forget. I think it's just called the Big Heist, I think is the name of it. It's like $10, but I guess whatever edition of the game I bought, I got it for free. So I don't know if I have just like a digital, I don't know if I have like digital deluxe or something like that, and that's why I got it for free. I don't know, but it didn't, it said $10 and it didn't actually charge me $10. So I'll say that was a win. And it's more of the same, which is good because, yeah, I mean, it's a good game. So having more of the same is always a good thing in my opinion. Some of the challenges are freaking bonkers. Like it brings back Screwball, and the challenges it introduces are Screwball challenges, and my goodness, do they throw like those big dudes at you with machine guns that are just a freaking nightmare to deal with. But it does make light of it. It does make there is an interesting mechanic where you have to you get extra points if you photobomb during the challenge, which is basically you have to hit R1 at the precise time and all that stuff, and it's fun for what's there. I pretty much 100%ed what was there, other than I didn't get 3 stars on all the challenges. That's the only thing preventing me from really getting a full 100% on it. But I went through all the different, there's new crimes that they put out for the city, thug crimes, and only a couple of the sections of the city get new crimes, though. It's not the whole city. It's only like maybe 5 or 6 sections. It does continue the story a little bit. You get a little bit, there's a few story notes from, Spider Boy, that's what I'm calling him, and other things. They do explore Spider-Man's relationship, at least a little bit, with Black Cat, and she uses that obviously to her advantage. They explore the original Black Cat a little bit, her father. So it's nice. It's a nice thing all around. I enjoyed it. Again, it was about I'd say 4 hours it took me to do the whole thing through. It's not very long, so you could probably finish it in one sitting. It took me 2 sittings, but yeah, I think all in all it was maybe 4 hours, and that was including all the crimes, taking down all the crimes and doing all the challenges at least once, and grabbing all the paintings and stuff around, because you have to. That's one of the things you have to do, is grab all the original Black Cat's paintings that he stole. He hid them around the city. So yeah, no, cool things. I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoy Spider-Man on the PS4, and I will be the next DLC. There's 2 more sections in the menu for DLC, so I will be definitely playing both of those whenever they come out, whenever that's going to be. I have no idea when that will be, but I will definitely have it on my list because I enjoyed the heck out of this. So with that brings us to the end of our episode for this week. It's a little bit longer because I had a lot of extra news to talk about here. But I hope it's been a good week for everybody else. It's been a very good week for me. I do need to get a channel update out at some point to talk about a few things. It may not be out this month. In fact, it probably won't be out this month. So this will be I usually do channel update once a month. I've missed last month and I will miss this month as well. So I'll probably get one out for November. I've finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel as far as work is concerned. Work has been really, I've had deadlines, so it's been very busy for me. So that's why the content on the channel's been kind of, there haven't been as many Let's Plays on the channel. But I'm also limiting the Let's Plays I do now to try and, I have to, basically, I'm trying to get some time back to do things like this and whatnot. So if I'm doing things like this and whatnot, then I need to focus on content that I can make in a little bit faster, shall we say, a little bit more efficiently, and all those things. So enjoying a lot of stuff, doing a lot of streaming. Hopefully I'll stream every day this week except for Monday like I normally do. I have been skipping a few days here and there just because of being busy and being tired and other things like that. I'm also debating whether or not I'm going to stream back on Twitch as well as everything else, as well as Mixer and everything. I'm still debating it. I looked at my Twitch dashboard for the first time in like 2 years. And I started screwing around with settings and whatnot, so I may end up doing Restream again, Restream.io, and restreaming to Mixer and Twitch, and then also try to keep streaming to Caffeine. I haven't really been getting the too much interactions on Caffeine lately. I mean, it's been very, very low key. I've been getting a lot of interactions on Mixer, so that's kind of picked up, which is nice. We'll see. Twitch has made a lot of changes that I kind of am interested in, and you know, as much as I really don't like Twitch, I have to acknowledge that there is room on Twitch for things that aren't the most popular games in the world, because I do see a lot of people viewing like older games and whatnot, and indie games and everything else. So, which is not something you see too much of on Caffeine. Well, you don't see it really at all on Caffeine. And it's not something you see very much of on Mixer. A lot of things you see on Mixer are people watching, like, a lot of people watched my Spider-Man stuff because, hey, it was a console thing. And I've noticed that if I play a console game, I have an easier time finding people to watch the stream, particularly on Mixer. So that's kind of where we're at there. So I we'll see. I'm still thinking about it, whether or not I will do that as far as streaming on Twitch again. I'm not going to give up streaming on Mixer by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly probably not on Caffeine either. So I have to come up with some kind of solution that will allow me to keep streaming to my strengths there, as it were. But anyway, that will do it for this episode of Dot Plan for the week ending the 28th. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I hope you all have a great next week. And hopefully I will see you next week.